Okay, so I will call this meeting to order. We've got the agenda in front of us. I know that there is some stuff for closed session already. And one change to the agenda, the order of the public hearings bylaws we'll start with 12 and then go to 13. Our agenda package, it says 13, 12, 14, but we'll go in numerical order from 12, 13, 14. Is there any other changes to the agenda? If not, Councillor Gramlich?
To amend that page 5 to Brian Vance to.
Yeah, that'll be in the minutes so after. Okay. But I'll take a motion to amend the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Gramlich. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so we'll start with public hearings. So the first one is number 12 in our package. So I will declare that this public hearing open and state that it is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw number 12, 2021 is to amend the land use map of the land use bylaw number 22, 2007 by redesignating lot 3, block 3, plan 688 NY from M1 light industrial district to I institutional district. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowner or landowners and adjoining landowners, as well as the planning and development officer. The notice of the hearing was advertised on the town's website from August 23rd to September 7th of this year. Presentations are to be brief and to the point. The order of the hearing for presentations will be the planning and development officer, followed by those in favor of the bylaw, then those opposed, and then lastly, any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Sam, and we'll get started.
Okay, so this is for the public hearing for civic address 901 4th Street Northwest, or lot 3, block 3, plan 688 NY, which is the old fire hall. The Municipal Planning Commission reviewed this application at their August 23rd meeting and supported the bylaw to be passed by council. It's being introduced because the town of Slave Lake has an offer to purchase the old fire hall conditional to rezoning. It's currently M1 light industrial and needs to be institutional for the required zoning for the current use and for potential for future uses of the site. As such, we recommend the site be redistricted to I institutional district. And at this time, we have no concerns.
Okay, any questions from council? Going once, going twice. At this point, I'd ask anyone in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anyone in favor? Going once, going twice. Anybody opposed to the bylaw who wishes to come forward and speak? Anyone opposed? Lastly, anyone deemed to be affected who wishes to come forward and speak? Going once, going twice. As I see none, I will declare that public hearing closed and we'll move into our next one. Okay. So this is for bylaw number 13 to 2021. So I will declare that this public hearing open. I state that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw number 13, 2021 is to amend the land use district map of the downtown and Main Street area plan by redistricting lot 3, block 1, plan 892, 1201 from C2 secondary commercial district to urban village district. The notice of this hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowner or landowners, and adjoining landowners, as well as the planning and development officer. The notice of the hearing was advertised on the town's website from August 23rd to September 7th. Presentations are brief and to the point, the same order as previous. Planning and development followed by those in favor, those opposed, and anyone wishes to be heard. With that, Sam, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. So as you stated, it's for 801 Main Street Southeast for the applicant is Slave Lake Accommodations Limited, which is also the Northern Star hotel site. And it's to allow, the rezoning is happening or requested because the owners want to renovate some of the rooms into apartment suites and to add additional residences to the property. The subject site is within the regional commercial designation of the municipal development plan. And as such, an amendment is not required. As it is within the mixed hospitality commercial precinct, it maintains a C2 secondary commercial designation and as such must be amended. In the report here, I messed up and I have indicated that the MPC had given approval, but it should say that they did not support bylaw 13-2021 with a 5-1 vote against supporting it.
5-1 vote against?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this bylaw is being introduced to council for the public hearing, and it's for slave lake accommodations to change to allow for a portion of the site to be used for residential for low income housing. This is a unique and creative approach to finding more sources of income slightly, as well as providing much needed housing in the area. In changing the zoning to urban village, it allows for the combining of commercial and residential on the same site without some of the limitations of the C1 or C2 districts. So in looking at the application and looking at the planning principles, the planning department feels that changing the designation to urban village district meets with good planning principles, and as such, the amendment should have no negative impacts on the surrounding developments. So at this time, we have no concerns.
Okay, questions from council? Councillor Busk.
So saying we have no concerns when the MPC voted 5-1 not in favor, you're just making that in the positive, or?
No, the planning department has no concerns with the application.
Okay, so can you elaborate on what concerns the MPC have?
Safety of children in the parking lot was the biggest concern.
Councillor Brundle.
I think that there was another reason too that we voted against it, and that was because of the use of the hotels not being in the urban village. So for due process, we thought that should be in there first. Otherwise, we're going to make that use non-conformant.
It could become non-conformant, but it's still a legal non-conforming, which means that the hotel use can still continue and it does not alter that. But that was a side. I didn't feel like that was the reason that you guys didn't support it.
Okay.
But
I actually did, but
okay.
Okay. Other questions from council? I have a question. So I sent an email earlier there that was looking for the uses that are approved in the urban
Yeah,
village.
sorry, I have those with me.
Can I get a copy of that?
You absolutely can. You know what? I brought enough for everybody. I'm lost.
Okay, Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Sam, when you send it to, no matter what the report is, not just on this one, when you send the letters to adjacent landowners, do they get all of the information, like the municipal and the lot block and plan, as well as mapping? Yes. Okay. Because a resident contacted me and said that they didn't, and they were asking what it was all about, because they knew that I was on MPC. They didn't get any mapping, and it was only the lot block and plan. So they really had no idea what even property it is, because without looking at their own legal address.
Okay.
They would have received,
there.
would have received this map
Okay.
with the red highlighted, just like it is for every bylaw amendment.
Okay. Other questions for planning at this point? We do have the option to come back to them. Let's move on to those in favor of the bylaw that wish to come forward and speak. So if you want to come sit right here, and please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and the council. My name is Ash, and I represent the ownership for Northern Star Slave Lake. Favor is only, we've addressed everything, like Sam said. We've sent all the information, how it has been going to be looking after in terms of changing from the hotel to the housing facility. The most important thing, which I see the concern for the council and the town, which is the security of the children. If you would have looked at the project plan and the everything, which we have mentioned, that there is going to be a lot of boundary, which is going to be about more than 6 feet, which is going to be built up outside the hotel periphery. So the children are very safe in that period of time. We understand also not only children, we had a concern when people who are going to be part of the hotel and also who are going to be differentiated between the housing, we want to differentiate. So there's going to be a wall between the hotel, which is going to segregate people, which isn't part of that. So the security concern, plus this is a hotel. So everybody knows about it. I don't have to emphasize on that. The hotel has their own security laws, which has been addressed in terms of the security is the most important thing for any part of the hotel. So if there's any concern about security, we can send another plan, which is to Sam, and she can address it in the next council meeting.
Okay. And so, to be clear, Ash, the intention is to put a mixed use.
Yes. So Mayor, what is happening is about 40 rooms is going to be completely in terms of a hotel, which we need to see because a lot of oil and gas people have booked hotels for about a year or two. So that's why we put up only 40 rooms to that. Otherwise, rest of the other hotel is completely converted into the housing. And we're also looking up to build up another block, which is why the housing is going to be more emphasized on. When it comes to location, I think this is an appropriate location because it also helps not only for our hotel, but also the other businesses which is around. So I think when people are coming to stay there, the food, which is the thing, Walmart is close by. When it is winters, they can walk by. If they don't have the cars, they can walk out to eat other food, the pizzas and the other things which they require. Which the hotel is not going to provide them. So it's not my beneficial of my thing, which I'm also looking to serve the community, which is, everybody understands that, the amount of money which hotel gets is very, very limited. So that's why we're looking at a longer term where we can help the Slave Lake town to build up. We have 8 hotels and other businesses all over in the country. That's how we've been putting it. We have another hotel, which we are also converting into senior facilities. So that's how we're trying to help whatever community we can. That's why we require the council support. Anything which council feels that we are not going by the law or anything, we'll be happy to help you and put it into the law periphery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions for Ash?
Yeah. Questions for me, please.
Questions, comments? I see none. So how many housing units?
Mayor, as of now, we're looking at about 62.
62 housing.
Yeah, 62, but it might go less, depends on 1 to 2 units. My construction team is working on it. So we will have a clear picture on it. Right, sir?
Okay. Councillor Busk.
So just for visualization's sake, so let's say the north side of the hotel, that's going to be the rooms?
Right.
Or the housing units?
Correct.
And then the south side, that's going to be the hotel?
Correct.
Correct?
Outside. This side is the housing, which is the south side, I think.
No, it's not.
Yeah, the north side. Yeah, you're right.
So you're going to have clear definition of properties
Oh, yes.
and there'll be some form of enclosed area for the youth of the facility to go into that the hotel residents cannot then. So if you have a playground in the back, let's say somebody comes to stay at the hotel, they're not going to have access to that. That's going to be blocked off to use for the residents and not for the visitors, correct?
Councillor, absolutely correct. Which one thing I didn't emphasize on it was the hotel has a general manager who's staying in the hotel 24/7. The staff is there in the hotel. So the security wise, this is one of the biggest concern because which I want to emphasize that anything happens or any, for God forbid, we have a team which is already there. So the demarcation is absolutely the first and the priority because that's why we're building a wall inside the hotel. And even the entrance for the housing is going to be separate. So which is where, we discussed all the ownership that we want to make sure that the emphasis is laid on the demarcation and people from the hotel. That's why we're looking at when we sent the plan to Samantha and the entire thing, it was a demarcation, which was the most important thing which we placed on thing. You're absolutely right on that.
Okay, Councillor Brandel and then Councillor King.
Sure.
So it's not a motel, right? It's a hotel.
It's a hotel.
They're not going to, the housing units aren't going to have their own exit.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be more like an apartment building. So on a
Absolutely.
central door and they get to their
Absolutely.
units by a central hallway.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So then question for Sam. I see apartments and townhouses and row housing as permitted and discretionary uses. Does fourplexes fall in there as those uses?
Fourplexes and row houses are
They're the same thing? Okay, yeah, just making sure that all of the uses are looked after then.
Okay, Councillor King.
I was just wondering, is this a private thing that you're taking on, or is this a government plan? Or are you guys doing this as a hotel on your own?
No, it's including the government plan.
So it will be part of Slave Lake housing, correct?
Yeah.
Or am I not correct?
It's not technically that.
Okay.
Basically, the government, go ahead.
I can answer that.
Okay.
So our originally plan for this building from housing is what we've been lobbying for 5 years.
Right.
We secured $4.5 million from the government, and we were going to demolish 20 units in the Northwest and 5th and 6th and replace it with a brand new build. So a lot of the buildings on that street are 1960s, 1970s. They've passed their end of life. Housing's always putting more money into it. They're just not efficient to run. So we were going to get rid of, demolish, or sell 20 of those and then rebuild a brand new building in that location. So it would be more efficient to run. Housing office would be in that location as well. And then the town of Slave Lake also put in infrastructure. They paved the streets and put in some money and upgraded the park. So the original plan was actually going to be a total facelift for that whole area. But that was the previous government that gave us the money. So now with this government, they like the private sector. So the minister put out the tender to the private sector. And this group was the only tender that got the project, or that actually put in a tender.
Put in the project, yes, and we got the money.
So now that project has morphed into this location and this group looking after.
It is
social
more
housing.
privatization to things.
So that project that is scrapped on 5th and 5th,
Yeah,
and this is going to replace it. So when they did this
That is the
before,
plan.
we do have another building in town that operates like this. Correct? Kind of?
Similar.
Heritage, yeah.
Old Macbeth.
So how do we ensure the sustainability of this? Or is that just up to the provincial government?
Well,
Largely, it's up to the provincial government. It's
who
their
would do
funds,
the
it's their
upkeep,
project,
who
it's they're the ones that manage it. So housing has a say to some degree
really?
on what it is, but theoretically, it's the province's project, the province's money.
it is, yeah. But to your point, Rebecca, I think that, the reason that one works because Slave Lake Housing is managing it is because the government pays for the taxes and capital maintenance.
correct.
So it'll,
Correct.
In this case, it'll be up to
Us. So
Your-
that's what I wanted to add it.
So that will
the
be up to
correct.
you
So,
guys.
so that is what we are investing in it, and we're changing the units into a proper, housing, getting them the equipments and everything. And if the maintenance of the things which happens in the wear and tear, everything, we take care of it.
And the reason that you're still running
Correct.
the hotel is
Correct.
my understanding
Correct.
is because you want to make it
Correct.
financially
Correct.
viable.
Correct. Absolutely correct, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Bust.
So the delineation between the parking lots will be separated as well, in that you'll have the parking for the hotel, the logging trucks, all that stuff will be on the
Correct, which is on the
south
south side and the north side, correct.
and the parking lot will be specifically cordoned off for the residents of that
Correct. Correct.
housing complex.
Yes, correct, Councillor.
So there'll be no through traffic for the logging
All through
trucks
traffic.
coming
So
in.
the one entrance is going to be completely for the hotel, and the other entrance and exit we're going to make separately for the housing.
And so the one thing I will remind all of council, a lot of those details will all have to be figured out during the development permit
Correct.
stage, which we're not at yet. Today, we're just here to evaluate and discuss zoning as a potential option.
Correct.
Because theoretically, we could approve the zoning and he decides not to build a wall or do any of those things. Or he could do something, he could put in even more walls and more things. And those details, as well as how do we look after it from a community perspective, will be through, some of our advocacy with the housing authority and with the province, but theoretically it is the province's project. It is the province's money, and our discussion tonight is to look at zoning. Councillor Brandel.
One more question. Are you going to be doing any public consultation in the community?
As of now, we've not discussed on that, but definitely we can look into that. We
Okay.
have not gone to that process right now.
Okay.
So to be clear, you're saying that's an option.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I would encourage you to do that.
Of course,
actually.
100%.
Yeah.
We would, because since it's going to be the flagship for the town and it's going to be the location right there, we would prefer to do that. But it's, between the ownerships and everything, we are more than happy to help. Like I said, the council, the community and the council, those Slave Lake, we are going to be part of it. And in fact, when I came last before COVID, we were the one who were supporting the entire community and the council to do, get the meetings done and all those things. So we will be more than happy to do it.
Okay, any other questions? Going once, going twice. Thanks, Ash.
Thank you,
I'll
sir.
let you sit down there again. Anyone else in favor of the bylaw who wishes to come forward and speak? Anybody else in favor? Anybody opposed to the bylaw that wishes to come forward and speak? Anybody opposed? Anybody deemed to be affected that wishes to come forward and speak? Any last questions for planning and development before we close this off? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Bruno.
Sorry. Sam, I was under the understanding that there was an email sent to you opposing the project. Did you receive
It's
that?
in the agenda,
Is it
the
in
letter, yeah.
Yeah, letter from housing.
No,
Yes.
no, from a resident.
There was a business, yeah, that sent in an email saying, I actually forgot to print that off. Sorry, my day got away from me. I'm going to pull it up and read it to you. Give me a second here and I'll pull it up.
Why don't we, I don't think that'll influence,
can-
we make
it
the
can be
decision
read
later,
because
so
it's
we can
before
we'll get you
the-
to print it while we have a break at some point before we
can
go
do
into the
that, yeah.
report. So for process, it's a public hearing, it's for questions back and forth to gather information. The meeting then is debated, the report is debated later in this meeting. So in between that time, we can grab that report and grab that feedback.
Mhm.
So if there are, so just so I'm clear though, on the zoning piece here right now,
Mhm.
that the intention here is that if we were to approve this tonight, what happens is we now have a non-conforming use on this property. But to alleviate that, you're working on another bylaw that comes up later in discussion about to add that use to the urban village district unit.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, just want to be clear on that in my head. If there's no other questions and no one else coming forward to speak, I will declare this public hearing closed and we will jump into number 14. For number 14, because we have multiple different plans, it ends up being multiple different bylaws. But theoretically, it's about the exact same topic, but we need to go through a full public hearing for it. So
Yes.
I declare that this public hearing is open and state that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the MGA 2000 as amended. Purpose of bylaw number 14, 2021 is to amend the land use map of the land use bylaw number 22, 2007 by redesignating lot 3, block 1, plan 892-1201 from C2 secondary commercial district to UV urban village district. The notice of the hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowner, landowners, and adjoining landowners, as well as planning and development. It was also advertised on the town's website from August 23rd to September 7th of this year. Order the hearing and presentations will be the same, planning and development, followed by those in favor, those opposed, and those who wish to be heard. And so our first one was about the exact same property, but it was in regards to amending the land use district map of the downtown Main Street area plan. This one's about amending the land use map of the land use bylaw. So with that planning and development, do you have anything new to add?
No.
Okay. Any questions from council? At this point, ask anyone those in favor of the bylaw to come forward and speak. Anybody in favor? Going once, going twice. Anybody opposed to the bylaw that wishes to come forward and speak? Going once, going twice. Anybody deemed to be affected that wishes to come forward and speak? Going once, going twice. I will declare this public hearing closed. Okay, getting back to agenda, we've got minutes of our previous meetings. So we've got the first one, the special meeting of council held on June 22nd on page 4 in our package. Any issues with those minutes, Councillor Busk?
Just on the page 5 of the package, we have to change the CAO's name to the current CAO.
Any other changes, issues? If not, motion to accept them as amended. Thank you, Councillor Randall. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, we'll jump into regular meeting of council or minutes from August 17th on page 6 in our package. Any issues with those minutes, Councillor Randall?
Hate to be the picky one, but there's a number of spelling errors. So page 6, right at the bottom, Northern Star Slave Lake presented regrading tax penalties, or is that supposed to be regarding?
Regarding, okay,
Page 7, page 7, 3C, Speciala Meeting Council.
okay,
Page 8, August is spelled wrong on motion 264.
64, so I there, okay.
This is still August 17th. And page 13, Councillor Ferguson's name was spelled wrong.
I don't see it.
On C,
Oh, at the top.
Councillor
there, okay.
Ferguson.
Okay. Any other changes, issues? Motion to accept is amended. Thank you, Councillor King. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So special meeting of council held on August 20th and page 15 of the package. Any issues? If not, motion to accept. Councillor,
I'll make the motion to accept as presented.
okay. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, with that, we'll jump into CAO update.
So good evening, Your Worship and Council. A couple of things to highlight out of the written CAO update report. In terms of health and safety, we had 2 incidents in the last week or so. Both were relatively minor in nature. We have a safety stand-down day planned for this week, provided that we can still proceed with the COVID restrictions. And that's going to be taking place at the Gilwood Golf Club, involving all staff for some discussions around mental health. Moving on down to finance, there's a number of updates, but one of the ones that 2 of the ones that I wanted to update is that, of course, Finance Department has started working on the 2022 budget. And Finance has also been involved with the Fire Hall Internet upgrade contract, as well as our project coordinator, working with TELUS, and there's been some significant cost savings on that project, bringing the cost down to about approximately $28,000 from originally $97,000. And that's partially because of a partnership, or partially because of how TELUS is rerouting some of their cabling in that area of town, but that's significant cost savings for us. I'll jump down to operations. Operations has been really focused on fall maintenance this week. And some of that fall maintenance has included some re-ditching of some of the ditches in the southwest and the industrial park area to make sure we've got the proper grading that's taking place. Some of that reestablishment of the ditch bottoms as part of the drainage plans that we had put forward before. In terms of our projects that we have ongoing, downtown revitalization project, a number of RFPs have been issued, and work has been, contracts have been signed for work. The biggest piece that's holding things up there is just waiting on utility locates. Seems to be a theme with a lot of our projects lately, that utility locates are taking a while. Same goes for the trail connection to Big Fish Bay. So that's the trail on the east side of the Fire Hall property that will connect 5th or 6th to Caribou Trail. And that one, the work is expected to start as early as next week, just depending upon those utility locates. Trail relocation in behind the church and mosque is just wrapping up the final pieces. It's essentially complete. And the drainage upgrades I already mentioned, that's a focus for operations, as well as our project coordinator, in terms of doing some of that drainage work around 6th Avenue Southwest and the drainage that was planned over there. Next, I'll jump down to enforcement and community services. Our peace officers had a very busy month of August with 70 files, and already so far in September, they're up to 26. So they've had a very busy amount of time happening. In community services, I also wanted to highlight that with the All-In event, there's a lot of, not just within community services, but all staff did a really good job of trying to host those events across the board. And there was a significant amount of time put in by staff, and it's been very much appreciated to see how everybody came together to make that happen on behalf of the staff. A couple more quick items under FCSS. We have a housing and service needs survey that's open until September 24th. That replaces the old-fashioned homeless point in time counts that used to happen. And this is a survey where anyone can complete, but it specifically asks about the people's housing situations, trying to identify people that are either homeless or at risk of being homeless. And so that's been circulated out through various agencies in town, trying to look for that information. I think I have just a couple more. ICE is starting to be or will be installed in arena number 2, starting so that startup can happen for the end of the month of September. And if you came in the front doors of town office tonight, you would have seen gold ribbons around a lot of the posts and so on. And so that is in response to Council's proclamation that September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And there will be some social media posts out encouraging local businesses or property owners to also decorate their properties with the gold colored ribbons and solar lights or whatever you may be able to do. I think that's it.
Okay, questions from council. Councillor Graham-Leck and then Councillor King.
I had a question, Gary, if you have an update on that project capture with the RCMP and the cameras, where is that at right now?
Right now, it's still on the design phase. There was a piece that had to be sorted out with the contract around the web developer, but it's still moving forward.
Okay.
Been working with Constable Dericio around that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor King.
Gary, I'm just wondering if you know the housing survey, is it a boots on the ground survey or is it just to agencies? Like, do we have individuals actually going physically out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's already taken care of. We have volunteers through the homeless coalition, as well as they're supported by the police and peace officers. As well as I can also make mention that there is survey capabilities through the hospital and a number of other agencies. So I think this one actually seems to be fairly well covered, and we are starting to get some completed surveys filled out and back already. So
Perfect, thank you.
They had a booth at the block party and they were collecting a bunch there too.
Yeah.
So it was good to see some traffic there. Any other questions, comments from council? I just wanted to say to the staff, Gary, I think, the all-in weekend was literally an all-in weekend. And, between baseball tournaments and parades and concerts, people came out in droves. And I think it was a sign that people in Slave Lake wanted to get together, and under the current restrictions at the time, that was something that you could do. And I want to say our staff did an amazing job stepping up to the plate to do that. And it wasn't just our staff. We had fire department involved. We had volunteers involved. I thought they did an amazing job. And so I know that Tourism Society, which some of our council sits on, and Chamber of Commerce were a big part of that, and the numerous volunteers. But I don't think we should sell that short. The effect too, the baseball provincials were on, and Kevin and his group there that did that. The number of comments I got from business people and tourists to say, wow, this town is vibrant and there's lots of stuff going on. I think it's great to see that. So I just want to say great job and thanks to all the staff and volunteers that made that happen. If there is nothing else, we'll move out of CAO report and jump into reports and new business. And so before we do that, why don't we take 5 minutes, and then Sam, if you can print that letter.
That's why I went out.
Oh, you already got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's jump into it. So bylaw number 12, 2021 is the one in regards to the fire hall, old fire hall zoning. Sam, do you have anything new to add?
No. This is a pretty simple application going forward so that the buyer can use the building that they're purchasing.
Okay. Okay, any questions from council? Councillor Busk.
Make a motion that bylaw 12/2021 to the land use district map, the land use bylaw 22/2007 by redistricting lot 3, block 3, plan 688 NY from M1 light industrial district to I institutional district receive second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Brandel.
I'd like to make a motion that bylaw 1221 to the land use district map of the land use bylaw 22/2007 by redistricting lot 3, block 3, plan 688 NY from M1 light industrial district to I institutional district receives third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, so moving on to page 23 in our package. We'll get into bylaw number 15. And so a reminder to council that this is a first reading of a bylaw that we're bringing forward. And so typically we don't debate first readings, but because this one is driven by ourselves, if there's any questions or comments, we will debate it. So I'll turn it over to you, to Sam, to go.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is for council to give bylaw 15-2021 first reading and to set the date for the required public hearing. This is to amend section 92(2) of the land use bylaw, which will add hotels as a permitted use. Slave Lake Accommodations has already gone ahead with redistricting application for their site and at the recommendation of the planning department. In the process of reviewing the plans and bylaws, it was noted that the use hotels was not listed in the urban village district and already so much work had gone in. This was missed in the original review and discussions. And so in discussions with David Kim, we decided to go ahead and add hotels to the urban village. This was discussed a while back. The MPC will review this application. It was supposed to be September 13th, but I'm trying to move that meeting to accommodate another item. And so it will be sometime in the next week or so. This bylaw is being introduced to council for first reading and to set the date for the required public hearing. And it's to ensure that the current uses of the site and the future uses of the site will be compliant with the land use bylaw. And we have no concerns and recommend that council give bylaw 15-2021 first reading and schedule the required public hearing for October 4th.
Okay, questions from council? Councillor Brandel.
So this is the only hotel in that strip that it's affected, right?
Currently, yes. So the plan for urban village is that whole section south of the railroad tracks over here to 6th Avenue on the west side of Main Street. Now, currently, those do not maintain an urban village, but that is the vision of the downtown and Main Street area plan, is for that area to become urban village. And so there's empty lots there that could potentially have that use on it.
Right. Okay. And then I assume that you've checked all the other uses, that we're not missing anything else? No offense.
Not with regards to this application. No, I don't believe that we're missing anything else.
In the urban village, not, yeah, not specific to their use.
The urban village uses, I don't see any issues.
Just making sure we're not missing anything.
I understand.
Yeah.
And when I realized that hotels was not in there, I had a bit of a panic attack. And then I went through, okay, what uses are all in there right now? What, are they all going to work in the urban village? And other than hotels, everything else was already in urban village.
Okay.
Councillor Ferguson.
I'll just make a motion.
Yeah.
Bylaw number 15-2021 to amend section 93(2) of the land use bylaw number 22/2007 receives first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for October 5th, 2021.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, jumping to page 27 of our package. Now we're getting into bylaw number 13. And so this is in regards to the public hearing that we had earlier. So on that site, and to rezone from C2 to urban village and amend the downtown plan. And so Sam, do you have anything new to add?
I do not. But I will say that if you don't feel comfortable going ahead before the hotels are added fully to the urban village, that second and third reading could be postponed until after that date.
Okay. Questions, comments from council? Councilor Brandel.
Thank you. I was actually going to mention that because I don't really feel comfortable without adding that in it. It's kind of putting the cart before the horse, in my opinion.
Okay. Councilor Busk.
I also think some further public consultations should be done before we make a decision on this. I'd be willing to make a motion to table this until after the rest of the process has been completed.
Okay.
So to be clear, so this would come back at the same time the bylaw number 15 comes back, or after that?
So October 5th is the date that it'll come back for the public hearing and second and third reading. So we could bring this report back at that point in time.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Okay. Yeah, so I'll open and say that I think that, I'll start by saying that I think that the province of Alberta and I think the housing authority did a fantastic job of coming up with an idea for a plan over in the Northwest. And it's very frustrating that we committed a bunch of money to building an area and that's not coming to fruition. And that has been a bit of a sticky point for me and very frustrating to say the least. That being said, that's not what I'm asked to do here tonight. What I'm asked to do here tonight is that there is the province who has spent their money on their project for an avenue that they live in, has decided they want to try something different and they want to put something somewhere else. And so we have in our downtown plan an urban village plan. Like we spent a lot of money here to create a downtown plan that has urban village designation in there. Right now we allow commercial, residential mixed use throughout Main Street downtown, where we have commercial below and residential above. It's part of our downtown plan, and that's how we promote and make things happen and growth. And so this one is definitely not the same thing. And there are a number of concerns that I would have around safety. How do we protect the province's money and the time that we're putting into this? And so we have a thing where theoretically the design of this is to inject money into a system so that there is more affordable housing for people in the future. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. And I think that's something that we should at least look in the box. And so a lot of my concerns are really going to come up in the development stage. When we get to the development permit, we have the MPC, we have SDAB that goes through all those pieces and looks at all those. And so for me to look at it and say, is it possible that from 10,000 feet, because that really is what zoning is, from 10,000 feet, could we put urban village in this location? I think from 10,000 feet, we can look in that box. I definitely rather look in that box than just throw it away before I looked a little bit deeper. And so I look forward to it coming back in October. I think it makes more sense from a procedural standpoint there, because the last thing I would want to do is approve one and later we end up with, we're not approving the other one for an example, and then we ended up with a non-conforming use on there and somebody has to pay more money to come back and change it again. I think that's just a waste of everybody's time and effort. So I encourage it coming back, but I will say that I'm not afraid to voice now that I think it's worth looking in the box. I'm interested to see where it goes. So with that, I still don't have a motion on the floor. I know Councillor Buss talked about tabling there was a good idea. Would you like to make a motion to table it to the October 5th meeting? Okay, to the October 5th? Okay. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So we'll move on to bylaw 14, then our package on page 36. Which is in regards to the exact same one, but a different statutory plan. Anything new to add, Sam?
I do want to say that our community really needs more low-income housing. And this is the way that the provincial government wants to give it to us right now. So it's worth looking at this change. But otherwise, I have nothing else to add.
Advocating, okay.
I'm trying.
Okay. Any questions, comments? concerns? As I see none, I would entertain another motion, I'm assuming, to table again to the October 5th meeting.
I'll
Moved
make
by
that motion to
Councillor
defer.
Ferguson to table bylaw 14/2021 to the October 5th meeting. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay. At this point, then we'll jump into page 44 of our package and look at the review of council procedures bylaw. And Gary, are you doing this one?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, floor is yours.
So at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic back in March 2020, seems like a long time ago, council amended the council procedures bylaw to allow meetings to take place via electronically and also to be able to broadcast those meetings. Since that time, the province also for a while had invoked a council or an order in council to allow the same. That order in council has since expired. We've, as a municipality, have received significant amount of positive comments about the council's streaming of the meetings, as well as not only council meetings, but also the Municipal Planning Commission meetings. Now that restrictions have been somewhat lifted and group gatherings indoors are now permitted, it's not necessary that we need to have that bylaw amendment in place at this particular point in time. However, based around the public reception around the transparency and the public comments that we've received being very positive about the electronic communications, administration's recommendation is that we leave that bylaw in place and to allow this as an option going forward in the future.
Okay, questions, comments from council? Councillor Ferguson.
So to be clear here, this is the same bylaw that allows council to attend remotely as well, right?
That's correct.
Okay. My only concern is, there's going to be a time where we're through all this pandemic and everything. And I do think, I think we all have had Zoom fatigue. So at some point in the future, I would like to see the option of everybody being back in the same room together, so that we're not running into the issue of, stuff going online. So that's just my thoughts there.
Councillor King.
I was just going to say, I also heard lots from residents that they like to see our meetings online. And I was just going to go ahead and make a motion.
Go for it.
That council accepts this information, this report is information, and in doing so keeps bylaw 11/2020 and an amendment to bylaw 28/2016 active, meeting requirements in section 199 of the Municipal Government Act, governing the procedures for council to hold council meetings through the use of electronic communications.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Mayor's Corner. You know what? The last couple of weeks we haven't had council meeting, but all in event, I guess I want to say again, I think that everybody did a fantastic job on that one. I think it was great to see the community turnout. I think that there's been a lot of talk about elections, a lot of people reaching out. And I think election time too, we get more calls and comments from residents. So I think there's a lot more feeding into that. And I appreciate, I keep forwarding a lot to Gary because it's his department or departments that have to deal with that. So I thank the staff for getting that and dealing with those, because we get a lot more of that during this time. The big news of the day, obviously, is that we're seeing our COVID numbers going up for a variety of reasons. This isn't something unique to Slave Lake. It's happening around the province, and it is frustrating to see. I know I've been getting calls a lot over the last 7 to 10 days, and very much some in the last couple of days, about the direction of what is the town taking and what are we doing? And some are very concerned that we should be doing more and moving more aggressively with our own health restrictions. And others saying, please don't. We've already been through 3 lockdowns. We're not looking for 4th and so on and so forth. And so my impression in our discussions as council previously have been, we'll follow the province's lead on, we're not the health experts and we'll wait for that. I think it's been very frustrating to a lot of municipalities, and you've seen some of those municipalities reaching out over the last week, urging the province to make some decisions so they're not stuck in that spot. And so we did see some restrictions come out on Friday, and of course we're all back to plexiglass and masks, and it is frustrating to see the least. But I haven't heard anything different from council, so I'm assuming that we're still on the form of we'll follow the province's lead and see where we end up. Other than that, it's also interesting to know we only have 4 meetings left. That's all that remains, and then it's up to a new council to decide a path forward. And so we'll have to look at the agendas as we move forward to see how much stuff we want to pile on for the next group, or how much we try to scramble and get done before it's over. So I look forward to those last few meetings and finishing off this term. Other than that, I have nothing else to add, so we'll jump into correspondence. So on page 85 of our package, we've got a letter from Alberta Municipal Affairs. This is just a notification of funding in regards to they give us towards elections, because the Senate's on there, and because we're going through this, and they got the referendum funding in there. So notice for information. I don't know if anyone's got any comments or concerns or questions. I'm guessing not. So I'll jump into CN Rail. CN Rail sent us a letter that we have done this in the past, that they were looking for a proclamation for Rail Safety Week that's being held September 20th to 26th. And would love us to do that. Any questions, concerns, comments? Councillor Brandel?
I'll make a motion that we proclaim September 20th to 26th as Rail Safety Week.
Any discussion on that motion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So I will do that now. So whereas Rail Safety Week is being held across Canada from September 20th to 26th of this year, whereas in the public's interest to raise citizens' awareness of the dangers of ignoring safety warnings at level crossings and trespassing on rail property to reduce avoidable deaths, injuries, and damage caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. And whereas CN has requested City Council adopt this, or Town Council in this case, this resolution in support of its ongoing efforts to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities, including our municipality. It is hereby resolved, I declare September 20th to 26th, 2021 as Rail Safety Week. Moving along, we also have a letter from Legion. And so they're holding their annual Law Enforcement Appreciation Dinner on October 2nd. In the past, we have supported this through a donation. I think in the past we've done $500, and largely I think the CAO has kind of dealt with it in the past, but it's come to council here for this time. And so any discussion on this or thoughts on this? Councillor Busk.
Yes, I remember doing this in the past. I think it's a great give back. They do a ton for our community. $500 is a minimal cost. I think that somebody should attend as well, if possible. And yeah, I think it's a worthwhile cause. I'd make a motion to pay $500 or to give $500 out of unrestricted surplus to this event.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So this is one I've talked about in previous meetings. And so basically we've got a formal letter from Royal Canadian Mounted Police notifying us that an agreement has been reached. And so essentially behind the scenes, the RCMP agreement, the federal agreement expired 5 years ago, I think it is now. And so during this time, the federal government has been negotiating compensation for RCMP members, and apparently has reached a decision. This is the first formal notice that we got. We haven't got one from the federal government or the provincial government. I think one of the things that I will say as a elected leader, I actually think the RCMP do a fantastic job in our community. And we've said that more than once. We've sent a letter of support saying, urging the current provincial government to focus their efforts on justice and justice for Albertans versus wasting their time on creating a whole nother police force. This does have a cost implication though to our taxpayer and to our residents. And so I would encourage administration to look at bringing back a report with these cost implications. One of the things that is unclear at this moment, I know that AUMA, which is a body that represents all of the municipalities in the province of Alberta, has been advocating to the federal and provincial governments to say, listen, we understand that these costs are going to be increases moving forward, but what happens with this retroactive pay? You guys basically have negotiated something on our behalf without any input on us, and are now basically saying, hey, we got you a good deal, don't worry about it, catch you later, here's the bill. And with respect, we don't think that's probably fair or equitable. And so our push has been around the federal government agreed to that. The federal government should pay for it. And so we'll see what happens with all those pieces, because I don't think this is 100% flushed out at this point. But based on the information that they're providing here today, I would like to make a motion that administration bring back a report to council at a future date indicating the cost of the retroactive pay as well as additional costs moving forward. This will have a significant impact on the next council's ability to do budget for 2022. And so it's important that administration put together some of those numbers so they can understand that impact moving forward. Councillor Busk.
It'd be interesting to see also the amount of, I guess, the employees that we've actually had here since 2017, if it's going to be retroactive pay and stuff like that, with people coming from depot continuously and stuff like that. We haven't had members that have been, like, the majority of the members haven't been here 4 or 5 years or anything like that either, correct? So if we're going to have to pay members that have been here during that time that might have had more experience, how that's all going to roll out, correct? Because as I see it right now, you're saying that there's a potential of $320,000, I think was the number that was bandied around before of
Higher,
even more, right? So like I say, when you start talking 4 or 5, 6, 7% tax increase just to cover this, it's substantial for sure.
I actually think these numbers here that are in the letter that we recently received from our CMP are a little bit more favorable than the potential ones that AUMA, I had a session with AUMA in late August there that talked about some potential impacts, and they were actually a little bit higher than these, but this is still significant. So we need to make sure that we understand what this actually is going to impact us and where those funds are going to come from. Councillor Bust.
And also with the present provincial government down, putting sharing the municipalities costs with our MD neighbors and stuff like that as well, being that that just started to happen for them, what the number is going to be being shared with them as well, correct?
Agreed. Motion is on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. At this point, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Councillor Busk. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. And so that concludes our public portion of the night. Thanks for coming.